Hello and welcome to yet another 2 Minute Tuesday. This week I want to talk about something that came up a couple of weeks ago during the UG Summit, and that was kind of this concept of security when you're part of a team, when a user is part of a team. Until about mid 2019, the way security worked is that you inherit the permissions of the team. In other words, when you are a part of a team and that team receives a security role, you inherit the permissions to act on behalf of the team. So let's say, for example, that the team has create permissions at the user level for accounts, just to throw that as an example. If you're part of that team that has those security settings, what that translates to is that you can then create accounts owned by the team. So you're acting on behalf of the team. That's what that looks like. So let's go into the advanced settings so we can dive into this a little more. And I apologize in advance because this video is going to be longer than 2 minutes, but I think it's important to talk about this because it's a big misconception. So I'm going to go into it doesn't matter who it is, basic user. All right. So I go into basic user, and if I go into account, you notice that account is at the user level, right? So user level scope. Now, when you read Microsoft documentation, they call this basic level, but it's really user. What that means is that if I create a team, call it whatever, team sales, and I make a user a member of that team, and that team has the basic user security role, then that user that is part of team sales can only create accounts owned by the team, meaning team sales. Even though it seems it should be like because the user is a member of a team and the team has user level create, the user then should be able to create records that they own. That's not the way it worked up until 2019. So in mid 2019, Microsoft introduced this setting right here, this drop-down menu, this wasn't here before, that allows you to control how the security works. And it's kind of confusing, and I want to talk about this, and that's why I mentioned that it came up during the summit. It's kind of confusing because if you have been using Dynamics for a while, any security roles you have created before 2019, before mid 2019, I think it was May of 2019. They were on the security privileges that I was talking about, the team privileges only. That's the setting that was the default forever, right? For over a decade. That's the way Dynamics worked. So because of that, when you work with some customers, depending on who you are, when you assign users to a team, the security will be applied in the way that it was before mid 2019, which is you're part of a team. You can act on behalf of that team. You don't take those permissions and then you can run with them. Now, in 2019, as I mentioned, Microsoft introduced this setting. Now, every security role that you create, like for example, earlier today, I created this baseline security role. And by default, that baseline security role went into direct user. Direct user means that the permissions that are applied to the team, once a user becomes a member of that team, that user inherits the permissions of that team. So it doesn't really act on behalf of the team. That user will now be able to, in the example we talked about earlier, they'll be able to create accounts owned by themselves, by the user themselves. That's not the way it used to be. So the problem is that now companies have ended either with the old way of doing things, let's just say the classic security inheritance way. And in some cases, they ended with hybrids, where they have some teams have some security roles that work the classic way. Some teams have some security roles that work the new way, direct user. And some companies that started using Dynamics after mid 2019 only have direct user. So it's really complicated to be an administrator when you have that thing in play. What I normally tell companies is if you have to be on a hybrid environment, or if you happen to be on a hybrid environment, because some security roles were created after mid 2019 and some were created before, the tip for today is, and I'm not running a clock for this one, the tip for today is I advise people to go and make all your security roles even, right? Don't have a hybrid deployment. Don't have like 15 security roles on team privileges only and then 15 in direct user, because that makes it super confusing for you as a user and as an administrator, right? You're part of a team, and let's say the team has 4 security roles. 3 of them are, direct user. 1 of them is team privilege. It's just super complicated to try to figure out, what applies where and when, and how do you inherit, and does that security role apply to you? It's just too much work. So today's tip is go through your security roles, open all of them, right? And make sure that they're all set to the same one. And that way, okay, everyone is set to team privileges, the old school way, the classic way, fine. Now you know that they all work that way and it's easier to manage. Or are they all in direct user because you think that makes more sense, that you can make a user a part of a team, and then the permissions that you assign to the team are now assigned, directly passed to the user. So the user just takes the security permissions and it doesn't act on behalf of the team. You like that way makes more sense to you. Fine. Go through every security role and set it all to the same one. Just, make sure they all look and work alike, because it will be easier to manage. So that is today's tip. I hope you enjoyed the tip, and we'll see you next week.